And we are live. What's up, guys? Welcome to Fresh Fit Podcast. We're here with Jen Pratt, Dan Silverman, aka the Lawyer Couple. We got a lot to talk about, man. You guys are not safe to putting your stuff in your mom's name. We're going to talk about it here in a second.
Let's go.
All right, we are back. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fresh Fit Podcast, man. Today's a very important episode, probably one of the most important episodes we've done in a very long time when it comes to protecting your money and your assets. But before we get into it, guys, rumble.com/freshfit, because you guys know any day now we're probably going to get canceled, so who knows? Check us out over there. So if we do get canceled, you guys will know exactly where to find us, freshfit.locals.com. Check us out on Megaphone if you guys want to listen to the audio version of the podcast. We have a Fresh Fit and a Fresh Fit Afterhours channel over there. Just make sure you wear headphones. Also, check us out where freshfitpodcaststore.com, where you can get all the merch. Fresh Fit Clips is our YouTube channel. Okay. Yeah. And we got hashtag even fit if you got a big dome like Chris. And we got the Fresh Fit Clips channel, guys, where we post 6 clips per day and 10 shorts per day. So go on over there and get another some more content if you want. And then Fresh Your Vlog.
And guys, for all your vlog needs, man, check out the channel. 200K on the way. And we did a live stream with Solo TV 84 recently. It was a great stream. Go check it out. Thank you.
And Fresh.
And guys, I did one more thing as well. I opened up 5 more spots for the CEO Network. So hop in there while you still can. We did a 5 Zoom call with my friend Kevin Tobias. It was amazing about entrepreneurship and e-commerce. Go check it out, man.
Cool. And then check me out, guys, on Fed 1811. As you guys know, I break down criminal cases over there. I just recently did an intro to the Italian Mafia. I broke down their origins in Sicily, how they committed their crimes, the rackets, prohibition era. We talk about the hierarchy. We talk about what omerta means, being a made man, how to become made, how the ritual works, all that stuff, guys. So that's out right now. And then I just finished filming the Gambino family. We're going to be talking about John Gotti, Carlo Gambino, etc. So yeah, we're going to cover all the crime families all across the United States. And go get my book, Why Women Deserve Less, and hard copy, and also as well as soft. So go get it right now, guys. It's on Amazon. #1 bestseller on Amazon as well right now.
And Audible.
And
Audible as well.
And our views do not reflect their views, by the way. Just so you know, it is not.
So
thank you.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a higher probability of getting whacked over your book or over your mob reporting?
I don't. You know what? That's a good question. I don't know. But I'll tell you this.
Forget about it.
That's a new one. It's a new one.
So, guys, we got 2 special guests in the house, man. We know who you guys are, but the audience might not. You guys have been OGs coming on the show now since pretty much the beginning.
From the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you guys introduce yourself to the people, please?
Absolutely. Thank you for having us back. Hold on. I got this hair that's just killing me. There's the same thing. All right. So my name is Jennifer Pratt. I'm an attorney licensed here in the state of Florida and only the state of Florida. I am the managing partner at Prada Law. That's www.prada.law. You can reach us at 888-88-LEGAL. That's 888-88-LEGAL. Se habla español. We handle all sorts of general laws, everything from immigration, personal injury to criminal. We started doing some criminal work as well, probate, trust, estates. But of course, our favorite department. You can also follow me at Prada.law and at Pratt Law, which is my last name, Pratt Law. But our favorite department in the office, of course, not because he's my husband, but because he's my husband, Mr. Daniel Silver. He's the head of our family department, and they handle child support, divorce cases, paternity,
Everything in family court. And I've been doing it for over 20 years. Family exclusively for, call it 15.
And he's also a family man.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So, so as you guys know, right, last week, crazy news broke out that a football player, right, out of, I think it was Spain, his wife divorced him and tried to get his assets and found out that everything was in his mother's name and she couldn't get anything.
She failed.
Right. And we were all happy over here, high five. Like, yeah,
City boys, we up.
But
until
basically Jen just told me just now, can you tell us the reality of what it would happen if that had occurred in the United States?
Dan, break
Sure.
it down.
So, look, let's just take an athlete, for example. So you've got two issues here. The money earned could be subject to equitable distribution, and then the amount of income could go towards ability to pay child support or alimony. So as far as,
Can you tell the people what equitable distribution
Sure.
is?
In a divorce case, the marital assets and liabilities have to be equitably divided, or usually equally divided. So any money earned during the intact marriage is subject to equitable distribution. So this money that he's earned and saved through his mother is subject to equitable distribution, even though, he earned it, the mother didn't earn it, she saved it. The point is that in a lot of our divorce cases, marital assets are being held by third parties or being held by corporations. Husbands transfer, litigants may transfer, property to third parties. And that's why we have to join them as parties to the litigation. So you could have an argument for a constructive trust. You could have an argument for dissipation of marital funds. But point being, in Florida, you can't just say, oh, all that money I earned, it's goes to my mom. I don't have any money. It's not going to fly.
Fair. Would that be representative of a lot of states, United States as well, if this went down?
Probably, but I can only give you advice for Florida.
Okay. So, but other states have similar marriage laws to us here, I would assume.
Damn.
Probably. And I know, at least in Florida, we're a court of equity, right? And so it's fairness. And so while I read the comments, City Boy's up, everybody's excited, that's what she gets, ha ha ha. The court has to see, is that fair, at the time of the divorce? My bigger question for him is, I get what he was trying to do. Why didn't he just have a prenup?
True.
Regardless, I don't think, I agree with that. I don't think that here in Florida, at least, that would
Fly.
I don't
Or really
think so.
in the United States, because otherwise, every single athlete would
True.
be hey mom.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
Or sister, or brother,
I got a favor I
or
need to
whomever.
ask you.
Or corporation that they had even premarital. Oh, I have a lot of people that tell me, oh, well, I'm getting sued or I'm getting divorced, so I open a company, but I put everything under someone else's name. This isn't a new concept, right? What this guy, what the football player did. A lot of people do this or think and do it because they think this is a way to circumvent the system. And it may be for an attorney who's not doing their due diligence, meaning the wife's attorney, right? Or the other side's attorney.
Yeah.
But if we're on your spouse's side, we're going to get to the bottom of how you make your money, right? And ese cuento, that idea of that story of, oh no, it's in someone else's name, or I don't know, I don't get, well, then how do you live? How do you support yourself? If you're that football player, how do you have that Rolls Royce?
Yeah.
How are all these things being
rented.
purchased?
My mom
You
did.
may have an answer for everything. And we've had depositions where they have an answer for everything.
Yeah.
But
his answer, I know that he basically said that he asked his mom for permission to the money. She buys everything for him, is what he says.
the problem is,
but that probably wouldn't fly here.
At his direction.
You better say yes, mom.
and at his direction, his employer, whoever it may be, I forget which soccer team he plays for, but I know it's a good one, I think. Regardless, at his direction, he's the one that said, divert the salary to my mom.
He gave her the rights to it.
Right. Whatever he did, right? But still, it's not going to fly here.
Okay, so even if you go to that extent where you have the employer pay the person that you're trying to get the money to, it still is considered.
What I've read,
equitable.
I don't know. That's what supposedly was happening. That's why when we got here, I said I don't want to talk about taxes, but even here in America, the possible tax implications of this older mom, of this older lady getting paid by, let's just say, an MLS team.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even make sense.
Weird.
$200 million or whatever they get paid, which I know is usually buku money.
Yeah.
And what did you do, ma'am? How did you make this money? Did you throw the ball on the field?
I won the lottery. I won the lottery. Damn.
It's just, I think that there would be ways to circumvent. And like Dan said, what you would do if it was here, if I was her attorney, let's say the wife's attorney, I would add the mother as a party.
Yeah, she's getting sued.
She's getting sued to the divorce as a third party. And Lord knows none of us want anybody messing with our mamas, right? Because now I'm going to depose her, and I'm going to subpoena her, and I'm going to ask for all her records, and she's going to have to answer some very tough questions. I suspect at that point, I would hope the football player says, you know what?
It should be forced to answer those questions because in a civil case, she doesn't have any Fifth Amendment right, correct, to incriminate herself.
You do have a Fifth Amendment, but then you have a negative inference?
So here's how it works. In a civil case, if you take the Fifth Amendment, you can, but the judge or jury can take the adverse inference. So you're taking the fifth. In a criminal case, you take the fifth, they can't hold that against you. In the civil case, the judge can give you an instruction that says, because he took the fifth, it's an adverse inference. He's taking the fifth because he doesn't want you to.
They can apply guilty.
Exactly.
Kind of, sort of. It's called the what is it? Negative adverse inference. Right.
You're taking the fifth because there's something you don't want us to know. In a criminal case, they can't do that.
Yeah.
But a civil case, all day, all day they can use it against you.
Wow.
So knowing that,
sorry, I love it when the opposing sides start taking the fifth. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's
I'm like a lion or a dog showing them.
Oh wow! Because that basically admits that there's something off here.
Yes, the judge can take an adverse inference because you're not answering the question.
Wow. We can infer.
Yeah, we can infer. It's not good for you.
Your ass is guilty.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm already in the pot. It's already stewing. I put it on my mom's name. Is there any way out now if I'm in Florida?
Well, okay. So really important question too, because we did talk about this before we started. Are you already married?
Yeah.
See, that's the problem. And that's why today we want to talk about top 5 ways to keep your non-marital assets non-marital.
Right.
During the marriage. This is really important, particularly if you're not married. But even if you're married and you have made some of these mistakes we're going to talk about, hopefully you can dig your way slowly out of them. Okay. By some of the things we're going to talk about today.
Bam.
So there are ways there's still hope I guess.
So I guess,
by the way, it's not me. I'm saying as an example. As an example.
Yeah. So asking for a friend.
I know.
So I guess it's fair to say that one of the not top 5 ways to do it is put everything under your mom's name, like this footballer, thinking that you're safe.
I thought he was safe, man.
Yeah, I thought so.
I thought he was good to go.
In Spain, probably.
He might be safe, right, where
in
he's
that
at.
country, but not here in the U.S.
Kicking in America, but
not here.
Damn.
So I guess we can go ahead and transition over. So what's the first way that people could protect their asses? Then we'll hit the chats after this one.
All right. So the number and
guys, get your questions in now. If you have questions,
20 and
we'll answer them at the 20 and up, and we'll read the ones that came up before. But from now on, 20 and up, but we'll go ahead and continue. Sorry, Jim.
We're gonna give you top 5 things that basically how we titled it was top 5 ways people convert non-marital into marital.
Or top 5 mistakes that people are making.
So don't make these mistakes, right?
Okay.
And they all sort of overlap. So if you hear us sort of saying the same thing over and over again, bear with us, but it's sort of overlapped. And in no particular order of importance. Just number 1, commingling.
Okay.
And so, for example, mixing old pre-marriage money, right, commingling with new post-marriage money made during the marriage.
Okay.
Dan, if you want to expand on that.
Sure. I mean, look, we're going to talk about prenups, and prenups basically protect what you have either prior to the marriage and earned during the marriage. But point being, if you have a non-marital bank account, and then you get married, if you take that non-marital money and put it into a marital account, in a joint account, commingling it, the non-marital money that you had loses its non-marital nature. So, there's a lot of different ways to commingle. Mm-hmm. But point being, when you take your non-marital funds and you mix them with marital funds, think of it as, imagine you've got a bag of rice.
Yeah.
And you grab a handful of grains.
Yep.
And then you throw it back in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, get me those grains of rice back. You can't, because it's fungible. So, when you're mixing money, look, there could be a carve out. Let's just say, for example, you sell a real property, you get $500,000, it goes to a joint account for 10 seconds until you move it into your non-marital account. Something like that for 10, that you might be able to get away with.
Okay.
But imagine you leave that money in there for a year, and then you deposit your paychecks, and it gets all confuddled and commingled. Then it's gone.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
so I get married to a girl, which would be stupid of me. But let's say I do hypothetically for sake's argument, right?
Can't wait to be a guest at that wedding.
I get married. I have $100,000 in a bank account that just by myself. As soon as if I ever make the mistake of putting that into an account where I have a joint account with my girl, now that is up for grabs essentially for divorce.
You may have made a gift of your non-marital funds to the marriage, so it's still half yours, but now it's half hers.
Exactly. Okay.
So I would say the number one thing there is for anyone listening, man or woman, prior to getting married, have and keep your own premarital bank account.
Okay.
Your own checking, your own savings that never commingles, intermixes with your new marital account. Hell, it could be the same bank. It could be Chase, it could be Wells Fargo. It doesn't matter. But just don't be no.
Where should they send their new money? Let's say they get a new job now, right? And they're married though. Should they be sending their money to that joint account or continue to send it to their single person
which
account?
money? Your
The
income
new
that
money.
The new money after they've been married.
Well, but then that's without a prenup. That money that you're earning during the marriage is marital. Let me bring
Okay.
up one point though, because it doesn't have to be old money for it to be non-marital. Like, let's say, for example, let's say you have a parent that dies and you get an inheritance.
Okay.
During the marriage, that by statute is non-marital.
Gotcha.
So you put that in your separate account.
Okay.
But let's just say you make the mistake that, hey, I got the inheritance, I'll put it in my joint account. I keep you mix it up, it's non-marital. Or it is marital. Yeah.
Yeah. So you messed up. Okay.
We
So,
had
as a guy.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
We had a client who got an inheritance, and their father left them a lot of money. It was actually a woman, left her a lot of money. And what she did with the money was she went down to South America and she bought a bunch of property with the money. But you would think, like, that's really smart, good for her, like investment properties to rent out, Airbnb, whatever.
Yeah.
Where it was like, that she got this inheritance money, which by statute is not her spouse's, right? She went ahead and bought these properties still not her spouse's. She put her husband's name on the properties. So
wow.
when she you remember
City
that
boys, we about to be up.
Freak property.
when she did that, she converted this inheritance non-marital asset into marital. And when she came to us, she said, I need to, that can't happen. What can I do? And she actually hired us for a post-nuptial agreement.
Okay.
And he signed.
Oh, wow.
I guess between them, she had been clear. I don't know the specifics of why she put it under his name. Maybe it was a credit issue. Maybe it was a foreign national issue. I don't know. But the point is, she went down to the South American country, laid out thousands and thousands of dollars, maybe hundreds, bought a bunch of properties all in his name. I said, honey, those are all have his now.
Yeah.
Nah,
And she said, no, that's not what I said, if he divorces you tomorrow, yes, it is. So we did a post-nup where we made it very clear. Dan made a post-nup. We made it very clear that these properties, despite being in whatever's name, Mama, Pepe, Jose,
It's
whatever,
hers.
they were hers and they were considered
Look,
non-marital.
but at that point, they weren't adversarial
Yeah.
because they're still married. And quite frankly, he knew it wasn't, they weren't his.
Yeah.
But point being, we insulated our client from exposure.
Yes.
And really, that's 99% of my
weak
job.
point. Yeah.
When I'm representing someone with money, my job is minimizing their exposure.
Bam.
Sometimes I'll be like, I want to win. I'm like, divorce isn't about winning. There's just varying degrees of losing here, Like, we'll talk a little bit later about sometimes people try and set aside a prenuptial agreement.
Yeah.
And if you can get that done, there might be a pot of gold in the courtroom for you. But the rest of these cases, there's no pot of gold in the courtroom for you.
Wow. Okay.
Pot of gold.
And I think that's
There's
really
no windfall.
I think that's really important that you made that distinction, that it's not about winning. It's about taking the lowest level of risk and getting hurt the least, because it's coming to some degree. It's about the varying degrees of losing money. So no, that's really good and I think like taking these steps early on is going to basically save you a lot of money in the end and headaches, because you're basically mitigating risk.
That's our biggest like spiel with prenups. Like, I know a lot of folks argue and whatnot, but when I know we'll talk about it later, but to us it's for that reason.
Yeah.
It's the mitigating of the risk and having some sort of, I guess, vision of what to expect
Okay.
if
So
the divorce happens.
is there any other method better than having a prenup, in your opinion?
Not getting married.
I was about to say.
Which
That's
you
a trick question.
See, here's the thing. The reality is this. Let's be honest. A bunch of guys that are watching this are either A, married, or B, want to get married and have children in their family, have that nuclear family. Cool. Fantastic. We tell y'all, don't get married with the state. You guys are probably going to do it anyway. So here's how to do it with two experts that will mitigate your risk.
Yeah, pretty much.
Honestly speaking here, right? So the number one thing is to avoid commingling, which I think that's really important, how you guys were explaining it. Marital versus non-marital assets. What's the second thing?
So everything else we talk about is gonna all sort of still surround that commingling, right? So the second one, allowing and listen closely, because this happens often. Okay, allowing your spouse to contribute towards maintaining or fixing a non-marital asset.
Damn.
For example, allowing your spouse to pay or contribute towards the mortgage of your non-marital asset property, or allowing your spouse to remodel the non-marital property, helping to improve it and increase in value. And we have several examples on this one, but the easiest one is you are now married. You have your non-marital condo, your bachelor pad that you had, prior to the marriage. And for a couple of months, you don't have a tenant. So all of a sudden, you're using your money, your new money. I call it new money, but it's like salary. It's
funds.
The marital funds to pay that mortgage for those few months. What you've done there now is you have contributed marital funds, which 50% belong to your spouse, towards this non-marital asset.
Oh.
So the goal there with any of you guys or girls that have investment properties that you purchased prior to the marriage is to make sure that one of two things is always happening. Your renters, and only your renters, are paying for everything. I'm talking about PITI, everything. Pool, renovations, everything that has to do with the property, or that you are using somehow maybe money you had from before the marriage that you can easily show when you transferred it over that it didn't come from the new marital funds account or money. Because you can have your own account and you might think, oh, well, this is my money. No, once you get married, unless you have a prenup, 50% of every dollar you make during the marriage is marital funds.
So you're telling me if I get married, I have a property, right? Let's say lawn maintenance.
The what?
The lawn maintenance. For
the lawn maintenance, right.
If she pays that, does that count for like that same number two?
She shouldn't be. Well, look, the whole point of this is to make sure that no marital funds earned during the marriage go into your non-marital property. Because here's why. Imagine this. You own a real property, right? And during the marriage, you're paying the mortgage with marital funds. And let's say you did that for 15 years. So for 15 years, you pay down the mortgage every month. So after 15 years, you've paid down, let's just say $100,000 of mortgage. Additionally, over 15 years, the property's doubled in value. So now there's a marital component to both the mortgage pay down and the appreciation. So now you find yourself in a divorce case where you need to hire appraisers to figure out what it's worth back then, what it's worth now, and maybe a forensic accountant to establish the marital component that you created in your non-marital asset by paying down the mortgage. So if you keep it rented, just signing a lease agreement, that's not marital effort. You keep it rented, keep all your marital funds away from your non-marital asset. There's no marital component.
Yo, I can imagine your girl
so any appreciation that you enjoyed during that time period isn't subject to any type of marital distribution.
Well, here's the thing: if you
it could be,
it could be,
it could be,
yeah, right. It's
but not if you have a prenup.
Okay,
and not if the property is rented 100% of the time and no marital funds go down to paying the mortgage and no marital, then you're safe. But the second your marital funds, Jennifer was saying, oh, what if my spouse pays for it? It doesn't matter if your spouse pays for it or if you pay for it with funds earned during the marriage. You're creating a marital component in a non-marital asset. Don't do that.
Yo, I can imagine, right? Let's say you're with your girl. She's like, babe, I love you. You know what? I'll pay the rent for you. No problem. I got you, baby. Just for 3 months. Got it.
Yeah,
got you.
She got you.
Damn.
Gotcha, bitch. Well, funny story.
Okay.
When I met Dan, he owned his condo. And I own my own home too. So we both had non-marital assets, but we made the decision jointly, I hope, for me to move in with him. And so I remember when I moved in with him, I was like, look, I can't just live here for free though. That's not my MO. Like I need to help towards the bills here. And he was like, no, you don't gotta pay nothing here. You don't gotta help at all.
I'm like, you can take me to dinner.
And I was like,
you go to Costco, get all that wine.
I was like, I'm sure you have a mortgage. Yep, you don't gotta pay towards the mortgage. No, you don't.
I don't want $1 a year towards that mortgage.
The only way as a fiance and as a wife that I was ever able to contribute while living in that apartment was, like he said, Costco runs, wine, food, but nothing towards something broke. Don't worry, babe, I got it.
Yo, he's smart, man.
AC broke, I got it. He wasn't having it.
He knows the rules. Okay.
Yeah.
That's crazy though. That's a crazy mix.
And real quick on that same topic, because this is, I think, really relevant for a lot of folks. Now the come up is like the Airbnbs of the world, VRBOs, yes. Right? Caution. You might say, well, I have this rental property, my shawty, she manages it for me. She helps me manage it. She does payments, she does the little Airbnb. She's helping you to maintain the property.
Yeah.
So my biggest advice is, whether it's she, he, doesn't matter, boyfriend, girlfriend, try to keep your loved one away from your business if it involves a non-marital asset like a property. And that's really hard because, you know, when you do things, it's nice to be able to work together. I mean, hello, right? We work together, so I get it. But the more leeway you give her or him into your non-marital assets, and then be able to say, well, I helped to make that, I helped to keep that. If it wouldn't have been for my Airbnb management, you wouldn't be able to make that money.
Stop the cap.
Yep. Damn. So that would, and I'm assuming this applies not just to real estate, but it could apply to your stocks,
your business,
to your bonds, your business, your
business.
all this shit.
Interesting.
I ain't
So
getting
let's say
married
you
for
have,
sure now.
Yeah, they work for you, buddy.
here's an interesting distinction. So let's say you have a brokerage account or a retirement account or something, premarital, and you stop contributing it during the marriage because you're like, I'm not going to put marital funds in my non-marital. I'll just start a new one during the marriage. So your retirement account or your investment account, premarital, is increasing in value during the marriage.
Yeah.
But it's increasing because of passive market forces.
Yeah.
So you
compound interest, etc.
So like passive appreciation is not marital.
Okay.
It's the active appreciation. So say like I own a non-marital condo. The market forces appreciation. I've got it rented. She doesn't get any of that. But let's say I take marital funds and I, put in a new kitchen or a new bathroom.
Yes.
That's active appreciation. That's something that is subject to equitable distribution.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or she went in and helped you with the demolition and she helped paint it.
Marital effort.
Her dad is the one who owns the tile company and they got you the tile. And
how about this? Let's say you employ her as an employee. Because you still get a cut of it as an employee. At this point, you're giving her probably a W-2 or whatever it is.
I think
it's dangerous because here's the thing:
and you're paying her for it.
But here's the thing: but regardless, you're expending marital effort. She's expending marital effort. It's all marital effort. So it may not be as clean as you think. You may not be protecting yourself, and that's why. Hold on one sec. That's why I tell everyone: if you're getting married and you own a piece of real property or you own a business, you need a prenup. Because you need to avoid business valuation. You need to avoid the calculation of a non-marital or of a marital component in a non-marital asset. You want to avoid all those things.
Yeah.
Look, I think if she has to work with you or he has to work with you, I think that's the smartest way, right? Although it's dangerous and it's a thin line, like Dan says, I think that's the cleanest and smartest way.
Employ them and have a prenup in place.
W-2 employee. This is your job. maybe have her sign or him sign an employment contract that clearly says they are not owners. They don't have an interest, but you can accomplish that in a prenup as well.
Or a post-nup.
Or a post-nup,
if you're married already.
All I'm hearing is don't get married.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think this speaks volumes to the importance of a prenuptial agreement. It really does. Like how, and we'll talk about prenuptial agreements and how to do them because I'm sure people mess them up all the time versus not getting them done appropriately.
The right way.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of time they mess up the procedure as opposed to the actual document.
You mean how it's done?
Yeah,
as in player.
Like, we're about to get married tomorrow. Hey, honey, all your friends are in town, and here's the prenup that you've never seen before. And it may be the best document ever, but you give a.
Do you guys want to go into prenuptial agreements right now? Will it affect the other three reasons?
Will it affect it? No. However, you guide. We guide. You decide.
Well, I want to make it easy for you guys. All right, I'll read these chats real quick, and then we'll cover prenuptial agreements real fast.
Yeah.
Are a lot of these questions, Chris?
Somewhat, more or less.
Okay, yeah, I see a lot of these are questions. Okay, marriage cause divorce goes, how does divorce work in Florida? Is it a 50-50 split or of the assets, or can the wife get 60 or 70% or 80% of the assets?
You want me to answer that?
Yeah, sure. Please.
Sure. So in Florida, you start with the premise that all marital assets are equally divided. And I can tell you that there is law that provides for an unequal distribution. But in my career, the only way I've been able to effectively get an unequal distribution is I was representing, let's say the wife and the husband spent $100,000 on gambling and new chicks and partying and stuff unrelated to the marriage. Suite. So the $100,000 that I proved was dissipated. I got her 50 grand back. And then the rest was split equally.
Okay.
Wow. But I'll tell you that it is the exception to the rule. In 99% of the cases, you're looking at a 50-50 split of the marital assets and liabilities earned during the marriage.
Damn.
And we have a case right now, real quick, where part of our argument at the trial, we're in the middle of trial right now, we're in day 2 of 3, is that what the wife's attorney was representing the husband, what the wife's attorney is proposing would, in essence, in the equitable distribution, she wants everything, which is the only thing they have is a house. If the court gives her the house, in essence, is leaving the husband destitute. And Dan found case law that says you can't do that either. It can't be so unequal that you leave the other guy. Like,
It's a court of equity. Neither party should pass from prosperity to misfortune. That's what the law says.
Bam. Okay.
Does that happen though? I see the opposite.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. The standard of living for both parties is going to go down. The court acknowledges that, obviously. But yeah, one party shouldn't get everything and the other party be on the street. Neither party there's no windfalls in family cases. That's important. Yeah. One party shouldn't get a windfall and the other party gets one.
Notice the word shouldn't.
Yeah. But yeah, for people,
well, there's always the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
And no good deed goes unpunished.
Alexander Laritas goes, I'm 17, and today at school I heard a girl talking about how her friend got flown out to Miami to film a music video. What the fuck? My generation is fucked. Hey, bro, it happens, dude. I tell you, man.
Hey, man.
Marriage cause divorce. Do prenups? No. Do prenups have to be fair in Florida in order to not get thrown out, or do unfair prenups get upheld in Florida too?
Good question.
Excellent question.
Okay, so fair. They don't have to be fair, but they can't be unconscionable. You can't be married for 30 years, have a prenup, and then after the prenup, your wife is going to apply for food stamps and government assistance because she gets fucked.
Yeah.
You can't. But here's the thing. With a prenup, both parties have to be protected.
Mm-hmm.
Both parties have to be protected.
Okay.
So if you have a prenup that says, if you're married for 20 years, the impecunious or the spouse with no less money gets X amount of dollars, enough to provide for her needs and necessities, a court's not going to reverse a prenup because it's a bad bargain.
Okay.
But it can't be unconscionable, and you can't violate the public policy of the state of Florida. For example, in a prenuptial agreement, you cannot say that you waive temporary attorney's fees and costs. You can't waive temporary support in a prenuptial agreement. So, if you have a prenup that says that, that might be violative of Florida law.
Okay. All right. What we got here? Cam 2 times goes, one of my buddies one time dated an Indian lady. She brought him to the house to meet the family. Her family disowned her because he's black. 2 days later, she broke up with him. Okay.
Dot or feather.
Marriage causes divorce goes, how unpredictable are divorces in Florida? Does a lot of divorce depend on the personality / beliefs of the judge?
Who your judge is going to come into play to a certain extent, but for the most part, it shouldn't, but I guess sometimes it does.
Yeah, unfortunately. Okay. We got TW Popcorn goes, I got everything in my mama name, but I'm hood rich. Okay.
Okay.
Marriage cause divorce again. Does putting everything in mother's name work in Florida? We answered that. The answer is no. In the UK, there are, what was it? Chris, I forgot. In the UK, there are dissipation / wastage rules to prevent this loophole. Yeah, I'm sure Florida has something similar. Frankster goes, 3-0 here, about to graduate, 0 debt, would estimate planning be a good career path, would appreciate your opinion. That is not today's podcast, my friend.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Marriage cause divorce, but good job for you.
In Florida, estate planning could be a good,
there you go,
career path.
Go for it.
Never too early to start planning your assets and liabilities now.
Yeah,
so congrats, you're thinking
sure.
you're on the right track.
Hakimi's wife will get revenge in the child custody case. What can men do to stop parental alienation and the wife leaving the country with the kids?
Well, look, parental alienation is something that's really close to my heart because I'm actually a product of a divorced family. And that was one of the things that I'm so thankful my mom never did. But I see it so often in a lot of family
use the
cases.
kids as a weapon, right?
They use the kid as a weapon. And I'm telling you, if I'm on the other side, I'm going to be twice as passionate because I'm going to be pissed off because I know what you're doing to that kid.
Yeah.
The only person who's suffering is the kid. Believe it or not, moms and dads, when we grow up, we will know. Like if our father sucks, if our mom sucks, we will know. You don't have to tell us. You don't have to dig it into us, and you don't have to keep us apart or away from our other parent for any illegitimate reason. Like, don't get me wrong. If your father or mother on the other side is abusive or things like that, of course. But too many times I see that in Florida. The courts do not like parental alienation, and there are ways to show the court that. One of the ways that we use in our office is a guardian ad litem, which is basically someone that's hired to sort of represent the interest of the child, be able to interview the child, be able to interview the families, and then file a report with the court as well as testimony, giving an opinion to the court as to A, whether there is parental alienation, B, who's doing it, and C, any recommendations like, hey, the child should be with this parent.
So it's almost like a neutral third party comes in and talks to the child and figures it out.
Exactly.
What's this person called?
It's called a GAO, a guardian ad litem. Usually it's an attorney. And so because most courts don't like the minor child to come and testify, and because we can't testify, like the parents can't testify what the children say because that's hearsay, you bring in this third party and you, with the acceptance that there's going to be child hearsay, of course, like that has to be written in the order. So the gal can come and literally say, well, Bobby told me he hates his dad, you know? And so it's different when it's the gal, someone who's supposed to be totally neutral, than like dad or mom saying,
gotcha.
Bobby tells me he hates the mom.
So the person kind of comes in and does their own independent investigation and gets to the bottom of it, whether one of the parents is holding the child for the purpose of leverage or some kind of other nefarious.
I mean, here's the thing. If you have a time sharing or parental responsibility issue, the judge doesn't want to hear 2 hours of testimony from mom and 2 hours of testimony from dad. That's all going to be biased and self-serving. No, because I tell my clients, you know, the judge doesn't care about you. Judge doesn't care about your wife. Judge cares about the child. So the guardian's going to be neutral and come in and investigate. There was
is that expensive to get that in?
So it's another attorney that you're hiring, usually split 50-50 by the parents. Sometimes if there's like a lesser impecunious or whatever the word is, you know, maybe it might be 70-30, 80-20, but yeah, someone's going to pay.
So the other party doesn't have to agree to it. Let's say the mom is withholding the child. Like that's the most common, right? And the dad is like, I know you're doing this on purpose. I'm hiring this individual. Can the woman say, no, we're not getting him involved?
Here's usually it's court appointed. And when it's court appointed, in my experience, the majority of judges are going to make both parties pay some percentage because everyone needs to have a dog in the fight. Because let's just say, husband pays 100%, you know, wife's on the phone with the gal for like 3 hours, like on a pity party, and he's paying for it. So everyone has to have a stake in the game.
But to answer your question, the party that wants the gal would file a motion for appointment of gal. And the other side could say, we disagree. They could oppose it. I think, Dan, hear me out. What do you think? Probably 80% of the time the judge will say, I'm gonna probably grant it.
I don't want to give percentages, but I'll just say, like, if you have a contested custody or time sharing issue and the court needs to get to the bottom of it, they're going to appoint a guardian to do so. You know, because they just don't want to hear hours and hours for both parties. Just get the guardian impartial, unbiased, and make recommendations.
You
know, there was another prong to that question talking about children being removed from the country. And all I have to say,
he said, how do you avoid it? Child alienation and then them being taken out.
You need to have a court case filed, because if you have a court case filed, the court has jurisdiction, there's status quo orders, and then like no one could be removing the child from, you know, from the court's jurisdiction. I hear all the time clients are like, I have an emergency. I think this is going to happen. Like, there are no emergencies in Miami-Dade County or South Florida other than child in the hospital or child being taken away from the jurisdiction of the court.
So if let's say the father gets knowledge that the mom is trying to move the kid to, let's say, Colombia, and he gets this knowledge, what should he do?
You could file if they're not married, you could file a paternity case, file an emergency ex parte order or motion for an injunction. I mean, we've done this before because we had someone that was taking a child to Italy, and we actually went so far as to getting an order prohibiting the child from traveling and like getting it to TSA. And
There
was a YouTuber that had this issue where he divorced his girl, and he left with the kid to Japan. And there was nothing was there anything in court then? Maybe not, but she left, apparently.
You probably didn't get to the court fast enough.
Well, here's in Florida, when you have a child, if the child's been here for 6 months, it's the child's home state. But here's the thing. You ever hear the phrase like possession is 9/10 of the law?
Yes.
And like some countries are Hague countries, so you can apply to the Hague. That's very specialized. But point being, you got to do everything you can to make sure that doesn't happen. Because once the kid's in a foreign land, and the wheels of justice turn very slowly.
What's a Hague country?
I mean, the Hague Convention is like an international agreement where countries will work together to, let's say there's a kidnapped child, then if they're a member of the Hague, the law enforcement will work with that country to make sure that they get back. I know, for example, Morocco is not a Hague country. So you go there and like your child's kidnapped to Morocco, like you're not going to have too much relief. It's going to be real problematic.
Wow, guys, like the video, man. That's a lot of sauce. I didn't even know that this was something that you can do.
If it's an issue, just don't sign off don't make sure the kid doesn't have a passport. You know,
doesn't have a passport, or when it's time to do the marital settlement agreement or the paternity let's say parental, like the time sharing agreement, make sure you have stipulations as to like international travel or things like that if you think that that is something that could hurt. I had a client many moons ago where it was a paternity action, so they weren't married, but in the agreement, they said no international travel. Even though the mom was from South America, a native of South America, it said no international travel. That really helped him years later when he heard through the grapevine that she had every intention of taking the kid down to her country and leaving him there, moving there, because her family had money down there.
Yeah.
And he went to court and he fought it. And one of the things that we were able to show at that hearing was, hey, look, even in their agreement, they never contemplated international travel. So she can't come now on the, in the fifth quarter, fourth quarter. And so that really helped us. I know there's no fifth quarter. This is fourth quarter.
The 19th hole.
And that really helped us in preventing that. And the order that we got actually said that she can't even take out a passport for the kid at all. So no passport, no go, right? I mean, unless you like smuggle them out of the country, which can happen, of course. That's another thing. But yeah,
this is really like life-saving information for anybody out there that like might be going through some issues with their current spouse or girl or whatever with their kid. That if you think she's gonna leave, guys, you might want to file something.
To
protect the child from leaving.
People don't. Most men, I'm gonna keep it real, don't want to file because they don't want to be put on child support, and I understand that. I understand that.
It's not that much money though.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, like Dan said, and not only that, like, if you want to put your foot down for some of these things like that, unfortunately, you gotta also, avail yourself of the jurisdiction of the court and say, hey, I'm the father. Give me my rights as a father.
Every parenting plan is going to address international travel.
Yeah.
And international travel encompasses everything from a trip to the Ukraine, which no one would ever agree to,
of course,
to a Disney cruise, which pre-COVID no one could ever object to.
Yeah.
So, somewhere in the middle, and in our agreements, we say like, you can travel freely, but if you want to go to a, do not travel level 4 red danger zone travel, country, you need to get written authorization and I've had, sometimes we have people that are from the Middle East, and we've had people have to come up with like travel bonds. So you want to travel to the Sudan, you post a bond.
Literally.
Bad time to go
put up your house.
And things happen. Look, 10 years ago we wouldn't, or I don't know how long Ukraine has been a country, but you know what I mean? Like 10 years ago we wouldn't have had this issue, and today, so things do change. If you're in an international relationship with an international person, or you're international, consider these things, think about these things. I represented a father one time from Nigeria. Sad to say, despite my best efforts, I could not negotiate time sharing for him to take his kid to Nigeria. Why? Because Nigeria is not a Hague country. And I knew that if we went to court, I was going to lose on that. So Google Hague country. When you meet a chick, is the country Hague?
My brother did not know the way.
Yeah.
Damn.
Okay.
Well,
that's really, guys, that's fantastic information for anybody out there. Because there's someone right now watching that's probably in a situation where it's volatile with their girl. She's threatening to take the kid out, and he doesn't feel like he has anything that he can do.
Go to court.
Kangoo Kid, you guys are covering every important topic on the internet. Keep contributing and leading from the front. I appreciate that, my friend. Jordan 14, any advice on how to not lose masculine frame around women? I'm 17 and live with 4 stepsisters with a bossy mom. I don't want to be soft like my dad. Hey man, just don't be a pussy, my friend. Watch our podcast.
Boxing.
Anas Muhammad goes, shout out to you guys. We moved not too long ago to the US. My father messed up his credit and was looking for answers. Credit episode helped me help him. I became Ryan Pineda's program and now I'm improving. Good stuff, my friend.
Good job, bro.
The Ghost City goes, I have a question. If my son's mom tries to put me on child support without me being on the birth certificate, how can I defend that? I'm in Michigan.
Can't answer on Michigan, but if it was on Florida, it happens all the time where father's not on the birth certificate. But if that's your child, you will get served with a child support action. You may have to take a DNA test. But point being, if your name is on the birth certificate, it's a presumption that you're the father. But point being, sometimes people think, hey, my name's on the birth certificate, so I could. I'm entitled to time sharing. I'm entitled to all these things with the child. You're not, there's a presumption that you're the father, but until there's a court order that says you're the father and this is the parenting plan, you have no rights to the child.
Okay.
Right. So
even if you're on a birth, so I guess that could be good or bad. Because so if you're on a birth, let's say you're there, right? And you get put on the birth certificate that you're the presumed father. Then you find out later on that the kid ain't yours, right? You find out that she was cheating. And then, are you still on the hook to pay that child support?
Well, here's the thing. Let's say the child's 1 year old, and you take the paternity test right away, it's not your child, you're good. But let's say, for example,
you won't have to pay.
Right. But let's say, for example, you're raising this child with a mother for the last 10 years. And then she files the case. And then all of a sudden, like, you've held yourself out as the father, even though you're not the biological father.
And you didn't know.
No, point being, it is not in the child's best interest to tell, hey, kid, by the way, dad for 10 years ain't your dad. Sorry about that. So yeah, you could still have that child support obligation.
Because the court is going to look at it like what's best for the kid. And if you've been there for 10 years and now you say, well, I'm not the biological dad, I want out, they're going to be like, no, well, you've already been
There's
with that
like
child.
a little joke amongst us family law attorneys. If you're studying for the bar exam and you don't know the answer to the question on a family law question, answer best interest of the child. That's it. And it's not in the best interest of the child if dad's been around for 10 years. Hey, sorry, not the biological dad, so he's no longer your father.
You're not my dad.
So I guess as a tip for the guys, if you're on that birth certificate at the birth or whatever it may be, get that paternity test done immediately somehow.
If you have any doubt in your mind, absolutely. You know.
Okay. Damn.
I mean, even if you don't have a doubt, I hate to
if you're not
sound
married,
this way, but why not? You know, and
it's
it's so easy today than it was 10, 20 years ago. You could literally like swab a little, you know,
you could do
go
it
to Walgreens and
right?
just, I think they sell them at Walgreens, like DNA tests, you know.
www.paternitytest.com.
You know what I mean? Just to be safe.
I'm making that up.
Yeah. I just saw a video the other day on social media where this guy was like, it was a 10 or 12-year-old, and he found out that, and how he found out was because she left her phone around and she was laughing with her friends. Ha ha ha, he still don't know this isn't his child, something.
Oh, wow.
It was all over social media. And he looked at it and he was like, and he confronted her.
Yeah.
And you know, but for anything else, the relationship, I don't think he had any doubts.
Yeah.
If it wouldn't have been for her messing up, laughing in a chat or something, and then it coming up on the cell phone and him going, wait, what do you mean? What? And then that's how he found out.
Hey man, your girl's deepest secrets are in her phone.
Facts.
Telling you that right
friend.
now.
Always look at the conversation with the best friend.
Facts.
L SpongeBob goes, what if you pull a Tony Soprano and visit all the divorce attorneys around before your wife can?
It's a great freaking strategy, my friend.
It's real.
Seriously, it's real. Seriously,
it's a real strategy that real people with real money do.
And I'll tell you,
tell us about this. I've never seen The Sopranos.
Sure. So what ends up happening is,
I need to watch it.
What ends up happening is Tony Soprano's wife wants to get divorced, so she starts calling divorce attorneys in her town, and all the best ones, and Tony had already met with them, paid a consultation fee. So once a client meets with me, I'm disqualified because I've learned confidential information.
Bam.
So she calls me, I say,
Nice.
so yeah, I mean, quite frankly, it is a strategy where if you've got millions and millions of dollars and you want to, you know, disqualify the 20 best attorneys in Miami, go meet with all of them and pay a consult fee, and then they can't represent your wife.
Conflict of interest.
But
And
here's the thing.
accuse himself.
But here's the thing.
That's a finesse right
Forget
there.
about
In the Tony Soprano case, like they were in like, you know, some little suburb of New Jersey, and like, you know, there's only like probably
Like
10
five,
top ones.
yeah.
Right here in Miami, there's so many good attorneys, but you could in theory conflict them all out.
Yeah.
No problem.
Literally just pay someone, do it.
Wow.
You jump on a conversation with him, you jump on a conversation with him, blah, 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 blah. And the next thing you know, that bitch can't find a lawyer. Next thing you know, she like,
Forget
I
about
get
it.
divorced no more.
It's a wrap. That's pretty smart though.
That is really smart.
I mean,
Damn.
look, there are the top 10 in Miami that you may not want to go up against, and it may be worth a consultation just to rule them out of the
For all you
equation.
ninjas out there, there's some game right there. Bro. If you got a little bit extra coin and you think you about to get divorced, talk with all the top attorneys in your
Get a
area.
loan, nigga.
Get a consult with me. You conflict me out.
Save millions.
Yeah,
Get that loan, bro.
Holy. You just leave her with the worst attorney.
Can't find
All right.
nothing.
Alvin Sam, $20. I hate to say it, but he messed up by marrying her in the first place. Had he been RP aware, he would have known better. Just don't get married. Yep, fair enough. And we're going to talk about here prenuptial agreements because a lot of y'all going to do it anyway. Amez Kua goes, so how does Future pay close to nothing in child support because they said his sister owns a company and she buys him stuff and he owns nothing?
How does Future, or the rapper, how does
The
Future
rapper,
pay
yeah.
close to nothing? And because they said his sister owns a company. You know, I'm not familiar with the Future case. However, I am familiar, and this is important. And I don't know if this is the case in Future. I want to, in the artist Future, but I want to be clear. I am also aware that he has multiple baby mamas.
A lot,
No, multiple.
Multiple. That boy been busy.
Mm.
And when you go to calculate child support, first in line gets the first dibs. In other words, here, help me out here, Dan. By the time you get to the third, fourth, fifth baby mama, if all these other baby mamas already have you on child support, that gets calculated when it comes time for you to pay child support for the fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh. You see what I'm saying? It's like a credit on your, very few things get put as credit, but alimony or child support payments do.
So basically, it kind of almost minimizes your earned income.
Not minimizes. What if you are paying child support pursuant to a court order? Then that could be a qualified deduction from your income.
Okay.
So it might deduct your income a bit, but really, I mean, like, what you got to show is Future's earning millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And if he's earning millions of dollars, he should have a substantial child support obligation. But point being, I'm not too familiar with that set of facts.
Okay.
But child support's calculated on income and overnights, and then some minor things like who pays the health insurance and daycare.
So I guess the maybe the takeaway is that once you have, let's say, 3, 4, 5, 6 baby mamas, she might not be entitled to as much money as the first baby mama.
Right, but none of the children should be shortchanged.
Okay.
The subsequent children might get a little less and less here and there, but it shouldn't be dramatic because, I mean, child support's just not that much money compared to, like, if you're in a long-term marriage and you're looking at permanent periodic alimony, you could be losing like, 20-30% of your income. Like child support, it's a lot less than that. A lot less.
Keep in mind, they have to be child support orders, though. It's not enough to just have a baby mama. Like, people will come to me and say, but I pay my baby mama $500 a month. Okay, where's the quarter? Oh, no, I just do it because I'm nice.
But I'll tell you what.
That doesn't get put into the...
No, not necessarily. No, that's not necessarily true. I had a case where a father, we were arguing about child support for child number 2, and he was paying child support to child number 1 voluntarily.
Okay.
And the hearing officer actually did give him a deduction for that.
Because you're a badass, but not because it's in the statute.
Look, judges have discretion.
He's a badass.
Judges have discretion.
So you were able to make it happen in that situation.
Yeah, because it's fair. I mean, he's paying child support voluntarily to another child.
And I'm sure you had to prove the hell out of it. You had to show it wasn't none of that, cash. The guys that give cash. I still don't get it.
Right?
Zelle, at least, Venmo, Cash App.
Receipt. Yeah.
You need the receipts, man. You know what I mean? So he did do an excellent job. I remember that case. And that was, you doing amazing good lawyering. Let's keep it 100. I think if you walk in there and you're like, yeah, I pay her 500, I'm not saying you won't be able to, but you're going to have to make this man did a presentation. He presented the case.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, okay. I see there. Alvin Sam goes, I hate to say it, but he messed up. No, we read that one.
Chris.
Rusty Shackelford goes, I'm 31, making $160K per year as an engineer and own a house and a rental property. My wife is beautiful, submissive, and an asset to me. Guys, get physically and financially fit in your 20s to attract a good wife in your 20s. Okay, cool. So we'll go back to, so we covered the top 2 things, which was, not in any order, guys. Remember, today's episode, we're talking about 5 ways to protect your assets, or basically 5 things to not do and not be an idiot
when you're married.
Assets. Yeah. So the first one was commingling non-marital and marital funds. And then the second one was allowing your spouse to pay or contribute towards your asset, whether it's real estate, cryptocurrency, stocks, whatever.
Business.
Then managing your business, all this stuff comes into play. What's the third thing?
Sorry, you just mentioned cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Years ago, that was a really good place to hide your money. Now on the actual mandatory disclosure form, which everyone has to exchange, crypto is
now it's
required.
There?
Oh yeah. So they thought of that.
Can't hide no more.
You can't hide it no more. So she touches any of your asset classes. So what about the
number
third thing?
3? And again, remember we said all these with sort of overlap. Number 3, sharing inheritance or gifts that you receive during the marriage.
Okay.
For example, you receive a large amount of cash as part of your inheritance and deposit or transfer that inheritance money. Or using non-marital money to buy something like a property, but then you put it, under your spouse's name. Similarly, you get a Rolex from your mom or your dad, not as an inheritance, but as a gift. You go and you sell it, and then you put the proceeds in our marital account. Well, you just converted the Rolex that was a gift into marital asset. Right, by putting the money into our marital account,
or I just give it, or my dad gives me a Rolex and I say, "Hey, honey, you like this Rolex?"
Right.
Oh yeah.
Or like the beautiful furniture we have in our house that was Dan's parents' furniture, but now it's in our house, so now I own half of it.
Oh wow! Okay.
Dan is like, oh damn it.
I don't think I agree with that. I'll pick my battles. I'm not going to risk not getting somewhere for a freaking coffee table.
So sharing
Very
gifts
expensive coffee table, ladies
That's
and
true, it is
gentlemen.
expensive.
inheritance. So if they basically, and it's kind of similar to the example you gave with the woman that got that inheritance money, went down to South America, bought a bunch of real estate, put her husband on it for whatever reason, and then luckily for her, she was able to get a post.
She was able to get a post. I tell you, I didn't think that he would sign. I didn't, but I guess they had a really good relationship after all, and it was able to go down. Because I think as much as we advocate prenuptial agreements, I do agree that I think it is more uncomfortable to bring up a postnuptial agreement to your partner than a prenuptial agreement, because the first thing, and I know in both ends you're gonna say the same, you're gonna ask the same questions, but I think if I'm already married to you and we don't have a prenup and you come to me like, hey, talking about a postnup, I'm gonna be even more like, why? What are you hiding? What you got under your sleeve? What's going on?
But it wasn't like that in your case. Remember, it was special circumstances. She got the inheritance. So
no, I get it, and that's what I'm saying. Like you have to have sort of like a like
no heebie-jeebies though. No creepy stuff.
Yeah, it was, and what about the case that you did, the postnup case where he represented the gentleman? Yeah, and we. Again, just going, I guess we're gonna go back and forth between this and prenups. One of the things that a lot of your audience have said is like, oh, prenups, they don't hold up in court. Yeah. Like,
let's go into prenups. Go ahead. Let's go into
like the Dr. Dre case or whatever. And I was talking to Dan earlier, and it's like the majority of celebrities, when they file for divorce, if you look through the article, it will say they have a prenup. Majority of celebrities have a prenup. And once the divorce is filed, yes, sometimes here and there, there'll be some drama. Something came up, something was revealed, infidelity, a child, diseases, whatever, dissipation of funds. But very rarely do you really have celebrities moving to set aside a prenuptial agreement unless you have some real bona fide reason to do so. In Dr. Dre's case, for example, it was something like she was claiming, and I'm paraphrasing like a mofo here, but that like he basically had a gun to her head when she signed it or something like that.
It was on the day of the wedding or something.
Right.
Okay, she claimed duress.
Duress. Okay. But most celebrities, and remember, I believe when they got married, he was like kind of already Dr. Dre, but not really. He was still like young Dre, you know? So maybe he did do it wrong. His lawyers may have done it wrong. I don't know enough. But my point is, that is a one-off. And also, let's keep it real. They were fighting over like $1 billion, guys. Yeah. People are going to file and try to set aside things for $1 billion. But whether it's a celebrity or your run-of-the-mill prenup, most cases we don't move to set aside because it is a high standard to set aside a prenup. You got to prove things like day of the wedding, gun to the head. Case that we recently had where we went, decision is still pending, but we went to set aside on behalf of the wife, pregnant in another country. She didn't have an attorney. He didn't want to pay for it. And the day of the wedding, he bust out with the prenup at the courthouse. Yeah. Unless you got those sort of facts, like it's not every day people are going to move to set aside.
It's so difficult to beat one. Like don't use a Dr. Dre example.
Super difficult.
Exactly.
Don't use a
Not
Dr.
to
Dre
mention,
situation.
A lot of prenuptial agreements are going to have language that says if you move to set aside this agreement and you lose, you're paying the other party's attorney's fees.
So how about this? So let's go ahead into a dream world real fast, right? We know a bunch of guys that are watching this show right now want to get married. They want to have a family. They want to have that nuclear family, whatever it may be. And they're like, you know what? I'm going to take the plunge. It is what it is. How do they create an ironclad prenuptial agreement so that they don't end up like Dr. Dre or one of these spectacular cases where a prenup was able to be beat, making a lot of these mistakes?
Sure. So number one, well in advance with plenty of time to contemplate all the stuff going on. This document is drafted well in advance of the wedding.
Okay.
Additionally, the financial disclosure.
The wedding ceremony itself, or like
when you go to get married with the marriage license. That's
how long should it be? Like a year, 6 months?
I mean, it could actually be a couple of months would be perfect in an ideal world. But let's say
real quick, people understand. You got the ceremony, and then you got the day that you actually go and get it done. Because some people will get it done.
The
in the
license is when you're married is when you get the license.
Okay, right, so the ceremony irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant, but the court's looking at the marriage,
the date of marriage, which is the day you sign with the government.
Okay,
the day of the government.
Okay,
that's the day we're looking at.
So let's say you plan to get married in June, right? Like with the ceremony, inviting the people.
Yeah, you want to hire an attorney.
April is the day that you were going to go ahead and do the actual legal marriage. You might want to do it. Let's say January.
December?
Even a couple weeks, just as long as there's
Couple is 2 weeks.
Okay, maybe a little
No,
longer.
we want a little more,
yeah,
baby,
sorry,
please.
Well, look,
A little
even
more.
yeah, I'd say longer than that. But point being, yes, that would be sufficient, and not to mention getting all of your financial disclosure to the opposing party so that they have full and fair knowledge of the marital estate. Because if you don't give full financial disclosure, like one case I had within the last couple of years, it was a postnuptial agreement, and the wife in that case was the one making all the money. And then she basically set it up where her and her attorney had the husband sign a prenup in the office, and 2 weeks later she got a substantial bonus.
A post-nup.
And 2 weeks later she got a substantial bonus, well over 6 figures that she didn't disclose. So that was a way for us.
That's a jewelry chick, right?
Yes.
Oh,
I remember.
Can't say names.
That's all we'll say. But yes, and that was one where we were moving to set aside, and Dan did an excellent job moving to set aside. And because of that, despite her hiring multiple top-notch, board certified, the whole 9, we ended up settling very nicely for the husband.
So in this case, honesty and transparency is critical, because if you go ahead and try to do what she did, where I'm going to go ahead and try to get you to sign, here's my stuff now, and then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, you go ahead and get a big pay bump, and you don't disclose that, now they could go after everything.
Right, because the problem is that my client in that situation, you can't waive what you don't know. And she asked him to waive something that she concealed from him. And that's the problem.
It was the concealment. By the way, same thing with divorce. A lot of men and women think, I got divorced. Haha, he didn't catch my condo in New York, or my this or my that. I don't care. Years later, if he or she finds out that you failed to disclose something on your financial affidavit, even at the divorce, you can also move to set aside that final judgment of divorce based on fraud upon the court.
If there's an omission or a fraudulent financial affidavit, a case can be reopened at any time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So for all you guys out there, I guess you got to be very open and transparent with your finances when you start the prenuptial agreement process,
right?
So that they can't reopen it later on.
And one of the best advice that Dan ever gave me with prenuptial agreement disclosures was always, it's always never a problem to go a little higher. In other words, if you think the property is worth $3 million, just say 3.5. Don't try to undercut it. Don't think because I disclosed it, but then you undervalued everything. That's still borderline shady, and that might still be grounds for moving to set aside.
And the law basically makes a distinction. The disclosure does not have to be minute or exact to the penny, but there cannot be any concealment. Concealment is what they get you for.
Do you also open yourself up to criminal liability for lying on a financial affidavit, which is basically like a sworn document, essentially?
I mean, technically, I guess there's a scenario where you could, but I will let you know that in my experience, I've never seen anyone criminally charged with, anything having to do with a financial affidavit in a family case, or by any sort of perjury or lying to the court. I've never seen anyone charged with perjury from testifying in a family case.
Negative is that they can reopen the case and go after whatever they found out after the fact. So just be transparent, say it all, so that they can't touch any of it.
You look, in divorce litigation and divorce work, you have to be transparent. You just do. There's no privilege to any bank accounts or credit card records or any financial statements. There's no privilege.
Wait, so I can't sell her a dream?
It was all a dream.
Okay.
I will tell you where I have seen people get in trouble with their financial affidavits that they file in court, in family court, divorce court, when they subsequently file for bankruptcy. The trustee will go, the bankruptcy trustee will go to your family case, your divorce case, look at that financial affidavit. And because you were so transparent, because you didn't want your wife or your husband to set aside, and you disclosed everything on there, if it doesn't match up with what you're filing in bankruptcy, you may find yourself in a problem, and the U.S. Trustee's office will refer you to DOJ. And
they don't play in federal court.
They don't play. They will criminally prosecute you if it's that bad.
So you better not try to show all this money, then go ahead and claim bankruptcy.
Right. Say your financial affidavit, you are claiming $3 million properties, and then you file for bankruptcy and you say you own no properties. I know it's a really crazy example, but it happens. Okay, you got divorced. Okay. Well, look here, a year ago or 2 years ago, you said you had $3 million in 3 properties. Where are these properties?
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I failed to mention those in my bankruptcy.
I forgot,
case.
man.
I forgot.
I was high.
And is that claiming the bankruptcy? Is that like a strategy people employ to not pay their spouse? I guess.
No, it's so that they can get a discharge, a bankruptcy discharge, so they can successfully finish their bankruptcy, because the trustee will be there to try to see what assets you have and ways to stop the bankruptcy in some way, shape, or form. If you have a lot of it, they want to make sure that whatever you have, you disclose in the bankruptcy. So if you're
Okay.
trying to conceal assets in the bankruptcy, but they see that you were divorced, they will go back and look at that financial affidavit to compare apples to apples.
Okay.
And maybe you say, I sold it, I got rid of it, whatever the story is, you're gonna have your financial picture in bankruptcy court should duplicate your family financial affidavit if you filed a divorce case prior to a
So
bankruptcy.
you got to be careful. Okay, because
And you
financial
you
affidavit
can't
is-
BK out a domestic support obligation.
yeah.
So if you have if you owe retroactive child support, if you owe retroactive alimony, you can't go to bankruptcy court and try and discharge that.
Okay.
So,
And sometimes even attorney fees you can't bankrupt out.
attorney's fees
Attorney
relating
fees
to support.
related to support.
So okay. So being transparent. So creating this ironclad prenuptial agreement. So being transparent about your finances so that they can't open the door later on. What else should people do?
Well,
as far
definitely.
as-
Look, both parties should have a lawyer.
Yep.
That way, but if you don't have a lawyer, that is not an independent basis to challenge the validity of a prenup because you chose not to have a lawyer.
Okay.
But in the grand scheme of things, let's say,
Wanna get closer to the mic? Can't hear you.
you're forced to sign a prenup the day of the wedding and all that shebang, and then you don't have a lawyer, a court can consider that, but it's not an independent basis to
What if
invalidate
she can't afford the lawyer?
Then you
I have to
should.
pay for it?
And it's gonna be the best money you spend.
Yeah,
It's worth it, right? To
It's
actually
worth
hire a
it.
lawyer.
And remember, that other attorney is reviewing, maybe negotiating. Your attorney is the one who should be drafting. So they should be a little bit less expensive than the one you're hiring.
a good amount less
Yeah, they
expensive,
should be. But it's going to be the best money you ever spend. And then they can't say they didn't have an attorney. And honestly, I wouldn't even choose the attorney. I would tell them, go out and get it yourself, find it yourself, and
I'll give someone a list of 5 or 10 attorneys that I've worked with before that aren't going to, pour gasoline on a fire and make it worse.
Gotcha. All right. So for the person that's doing the prenuptial agreement or trying to initiate it, it's worth it to get their spouse one.
And then also to make it ironclad, what we do after everything's said and done and everyone's about to sign, we get a court reporter there. And, a lot of time it may be via Zoom, but we have the court reporter taking down everything. And I'm asking, you're doing this freely, voluntarily. You've reviewed all our clients' bank statements and income information. You don't need any more records. You're satisfied with the discovery. You're instructing your attorney not to get more records, putting everything on the record. That way 20 years from now, when they try and come up with some bullshit this was freely and voluntarily, and we have a transcript of the court reporter taking everything down.
Damn. All right. So step one, make sure you are honest and transparent about your finances in that affidavit.
Sufficient time. Transparency.
Yep.
And then
hiring a lawyer for your girl.
I think, and look, sometimes they are so in love because we've had that. They really, we don't need it. Then I guess really putting it in the agreement, that the husband, offered to pay, wife declined, voluntarily waived, and then asking her those questions on the record at the time of signing too.
Okay.
Your future husband offered to pay for an attorney, right? Yes. And you declined, right? Yes.
Honey, I'll pay for that, but you know what? I love you. You don't need that.
Yeah.
I got you.
Right.
So okay, so that basically and doing all this with a court reporter there puts kind of the cherry on the top of all of this, so that you basically have shown that you've done everything in your power to make this as transparent as possible.
Yes, I agree. In really fancy prenups, and you've had a couple of these, they also hire a videographer.
Oh shit.
Where you videotape her or him, right? Saying all these things so that they later can't say like I was on drugs or this was involuntary or really while the person was taking this, I had a gun to my head the whole time. No, like we have you on video as well.
So bam. So they have this prenuptial agreement in place with all the steps that we just discussed. Do they need to update it periodically?
That's a great question. And I think rarely. It's not like a will.
Yeah. Because typically everyone's separate property stays separate, and you might be like, for example, you
acquire new houses though during the marriage.
But here's the thing. But if you're acquiring them by, let's say you're selling your non-marital property and transforming it into another non-marital property, everything's retaining its non-marital nature.
Okay. But let's say you earn money and you just buy more investment properties, right? With marital funds because you guys are together technically.
No, but here's the thing. The prenup should say that any of your funds earned during the marriage are your separate property. If that's the case, then you're cool. If the prenup doesn't say that, and then you may need to have an addendum or something like that.
So the prenup needs to say also that all future monies is mine.
Correct. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that
and we have provisions that say, look, in the event, we open up a joint account and both parties will put, money in there for living expenses, but that's like small potatoes.
Gotcha. Okay. So, and you could put that in the prenuptial agreement, so you don't have to worry about that in the future.
Look, you can put anything in a prenuptial agreement. It doesn't, as long as it doesn't violate Florida law or Florida public policy.
Okay.
Fair enough. What we're trying to do with a prenup is take you out of Florida law so that there is no equitable distribution and any support is clearly defined. Like what I tell my clients with money, if you get divorced and you're going to have a prenup, have the prenup have some provisions that say, like, if you have a child together, that you're going to provide housing. So you go buy a condo and then you're paying your own mortgage. You give her exclusive use for 18 years, and then everything's under your control, as opposed to like paying her rent and pissing money away.
Gotcha. Okay.
But that makes
the Twitch
her
stream and everything, guys. Come on over to YouTube,
yeah.
guys, on Fresh and Fit. Come on over. We're gonna kill Facebook and everything else, and we'll finish this thing up. Sorry, you were saying something?
No idea what just happened here.
Oh no, we're just going just straight to YouTube. We're streaming everywhere.
Yeah.
Nice.
But so you were saying something, Dan, about exclusive use, 18 years.
Right. Like for example, because you want your soon-to-be wife feeling comfortable.
Okay.
So knowing that if the agreement says if she has a kid, because obviously that's a game changer, if she has a kid and there's a divorce, she will have a roof over her head and her needs and necessities with the child paid for.
Okay.
That way she'll be okay in the fact that, she may be losing out on, the appreciation of your non-marital property or your business or anything, because in the event of a divorce, she's going to be okay. She's not going to be on the street. She's not going to need food stamps.
Gotcha.
Right.
Sunset clauses. Can you tell the people what those are, and are those important?
Right. I mean, absolutely. When, if you're married 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, there may be different awards. So yeah, if you're married 1 year with no children, you're obviously going to get a lot less than 20 years with children. But yeah, you see sunset clauses that were you're married 10 years, you get X amount of dollars. Over 10 years, more.
It's
or
an
less.
agreement of how much money will be given at the end of the relationship.
Right. Upon a marriage termination event, which is usually the filing of a petition for dissolution of marriage or support.
Okay. Fair enough. And you can even write that into it.
Sure.
Whereas you will get this much after 20 years, so you don't get completely destroyed by because I guess if you don't have a sunset clause, you're kind of open to the court. Let's say you've been together for 20 years. You have a good prenup in place, but it's 20 years down the road. You made all the money. She never worked.
One thing that we have done in certain situations where we will say that in equitable distribution, all of the non-marital stays non-marital, all of the income earned during the marriage stays non-marital, but in the event of a divorce, the court has jurisdiction to award alimony, and then you have a one-issue case. Which, because you never know, like you never know.
Can you get rid of alimony in a prenuptial agreement?
Absolutely, 100%.
Do you guys always try to remove it?
Yeah, we try. Absolutely,
Waive it completely.
That's another step, guys. Trying to get alimony taken off as well in your prenuptial agreement.
And alimony waiver is irrevocable and allowed pursuant to Florida law.
Nice.
But here's the thing: if your girl doesn't have a job or any real assets or anything, and you're planning on being married for 20 years and having a couple of kids, you're going to have a support obligation. So you might as well own up to it in advance and control it. Keep everything everything under your control.
Bam.
I have a question for Dan with regards to the unconscionability issue that you talked about earlier with prenups, right? We want them to be conscionable. And I think that was an excellent question. Like, can it be so unfair and then it be invalid or set aside? What about in a situation where two people get married, they're both sort of equal financially when they get married. They get the prenup, and then it doesn't account for like sunset or anything like that because they're just kind of equal. But then 2 or 3 years down the road, all of a sudden he invents this wonderful podcast and overnight becomes a multi-millionaire, and all of a sudden now these folks that were on a teacher salary, which love teachers, I was a former teacher too, but you know what I mean, like just sort of 50,000 60,000, all of a sudden now the husband or wife, whichever, right, is making millions of dollars, but yet the prenup doesn't say anything about the husband taking care of the wife or vice versa, depending on who makes the money. because he asked a good question. Should this be revised? And then we said no. But what about in a situation like that where your circumstances changes that much and all of a sudden you're like really, and your whole life changes?
Yeah, that's good.
By agreement of the parties, sure, it could be amended. But quite frankly, like in that situation, like the podcaster has protected himself or herself.
But now if that podcaster stays married for 20 years and the first 2 years they lived, sort of normal life, but then the next 18 years they live this crazy, incredible life. Now they're going to get divorced and she gets nothing? How is that fair when they had 18 years out of the 20 living this baller ass life?
But that is the agreement that they signed.
So in that,
and it may not have been.
So is it unconscionable only if at the time of signing the podcaster already had that money, but not if he made it during the marriage?
I mean, it's an interesting hypothetical, but
I'm an
Watch
interesting
the video, guys. This is a lot of
I'm an
value.
interesting kind of chick.
This is great.
Upon divorce, how bad is she? If she has no money to her name and has to apply for food stamps, there's going to be a problem with that agreement.
Okay. Well, but something to think about with your question about revising.
Because there's people that like literally will get married, have this prenuptial agreement in place, and then they quadruple their income.
Or hold
the
on.
girl stops working. She quits.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
What if you get married, you're this super millionaire, and we have prenups like this that we've drafted where we're giving women or men, $5 million if they get divorced at 10 years.
Hold up.
What about when they get divorced? This guy has zero. He's negative.
That too.
But
How does that work?
here's the thing. But do they have children? Because
I don't know. I mean, I guess.
A prenup.
Does it matter?
Okay.
Tell me how that.
Well, a prenup can't address time sharing for an unborn child or child support for an unborn child.
Right. We're not talking about
Well,
that.
the
Right.
point being, if they have kids, even if the prenup is ironclad, this podcaster is still going to have a child support obligation, and that would help.
So I guess my question is just as to alimony and equitable distribution, whether it's vice versa, whether it's that at the time of signing the prenup, I was a baller, I was super rich, and now I'm poor when we go to get divorced. I cannot pay you this $2 million like the prenup says, or vice versa. It says I pay you nothing, but I got 80 million in the bank.
I mean, the document controls. It's not.
I love
it's
it.
not like
I love it.
Sometimes in a family case, there's a marital settlement agreement, and then circumstances change, and then you could say, hey, there's a substantial change in circumstances. I need more child support because child support's always modifiable, but that doesn't really hold for a prenup.
Why? Because it's a contract, guys.
Right.
It's a contract, and the public policy of Florida is that they want to uphold contracts, because if they don't, if the courts, if the judges do not uphold them, then what the F is their point?
Yeah.
What is their point?
Yeah.
And I guess there's this distinction. Is it a bad bargain or is it unconscionable? Because if it was a bad bargain, so sorry.
Right. Right.
Unconscionable, then, you might have to throw
I think
some money.
unconscionable is the guy or girl that has 20 million in the bank, and in the prenup it says you get nothing, no matter if we're married 50 years. I think that's going to be probably unconscionable. You should give him or her something.
Yeah.
But in the other situation where like we were both teachers, but one of us just hit the lotto, or I don't know, not the lotto, that might not be a good idea, but the podcaster, all of a sudden you blow up.
Yeah.
Then in that case, I think the prenup might
need to be updated.
If you're the spouse on the other side, ask for a post-nuptial agreement.
Bam.
You see him or her making money. All of a sudden, the circumstances have changed.
Yeah.
Ask for a post-nuptial agreement, because that prenup says you get nothing despite him or her having 80 million in the bank now that he or she made during the marriage.
Damn.
You should be grateful, man.
Here's the thing.
though.
A lot of sauce that was
King.
given, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. You guys aren't going to get information like this anywhere
And we
else.
still have 2 more to go.
Yeah.
I'll tell you,
For free.
my grandma used to say, it's not a real problem in life if you can throw money at it and make it go away.
There you go. Hit these chats real quick. Schmeebles goes, how has Daniel and Jen set themselves up to protect each other for the possibility of divorce? Hope it never happens, and wish you both a long and loving marriage.
We don't just preach. We practice what we preach.
Okay.
And we both have we have a prenuptial agreement.
Uh-huh.
I drafted it.
Smart man.
Yeah.
Smart man.
I like it.
Gotcha, bitch.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that he said that in public, because now I can use that against him. As we know,
Gotcha, bitch.
There's a paragraph in there that protects me. I'm good.
as we know, the drafter of the contract, there is some there is case law that says that if I didn't draft it, then I could say I didn't understand. Anyway,
There's
whatever.
a
I'm not
provision
gonna
that
get into it.
negates that.
You're the trigger man.
Well,
I
We're gonna hold you accountable.
I'm
Freshman
joking.
Fit.
I'm joking. No, listen.
But we have a prenup.
We do have a prenup. We have a prenup. And that's one of the things. Like, I wouldn't push prenups as hard. Like, if I was sitting up here as a hypocrite, I wouldn't. I could never. I would just stay
But
quiet.
we
I'll be
both
like,
owned real properties.
Yeah.
So like here we are thinking to ourselves, like, we're both going to be using our funds to service our properties. And like, yeah, we're just creating a mess.
Because
So,
the
yeah.
truth is, this
Fair.
idea of everything we're talking about, the separate bank accounts and this, I would say you could do it. I have met people that have done it for long-term marriages. God bless them. But the reality, the practicality of it, it's difficult, guys, especially if you were only married for 2-3 years, I see it. But if you've been married for 15, 20, 30, 35 years, like eventually someone's going to need a loan. You're going to need to transfer something in or out. It's going to happen. So the prenup protects us. Like, we commingle like a mofo, right?
Yeah.
But we know that the prenup protects us.
Yeah.
And it's a piece of document. This is why we call it divorce insurance. Okay. Trademark coming. Divorce insurance, because it's like when you get car insurance. And no, I'm not saying your marriage is a car or your marriage is a house, but you get that insurance and you pay that monthly fee. And you hope you never have to make a claim. I mean, unless, you're from South Florida and you're into insurance fraud, but I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about normal, regular, schmegular people. We don't buy car insurance and say, I can't wait to get in a car accident, right?
Yeah.
You say, God forbid it happens, I'm covered.
Yep.
Same thing, guys. Like, obviously, we hope to God it never happens. But if it does, like, we kind of know, like, all right,
What about travel insurance? And I mean, for example, if I go to Colombia and get married, wouldn't that be a good insurance policy for me if I do that? Yes or no?
Travel insurance to cover what?
Marriage. So I'm not being married by the state of America, state of Colombia.
Oh, Florida's going to give full faith and credit to your Colombian marriage. Don't you worry about
Really?
it.
Yes.
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 You get married in like
Freshest dream.
Antarctica and like Florida. You
Yes.
So where can I go to escape this, I guess, regime?
Well, don't get married
Without a prenup.
with the government. Like, and even that's tricky.
No, that's
Religious
tricky.
ceremonies have
so
also been upheld
check it
to
out.
be marriages.
It
Really?
depends on the state. Look, I can tell you that I had a case where they were in Florida. They got a religious ceremony marriage in New York, but they never got the license.
Yeah.
But there's actually a New York law in the books that says that the ceremony is good enough.
Jewish-
So yeah,
for the Jewish-
the boys.
yeah.
For the Jews, my people.
So state by
Us.
state, but yeah, just because you don't have the license doesn't mean you're 100% protected, because
So be careful
the
even with
legislature
that.
might have thought of that.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all I'm hearing is ultimately don't get married.
Yeah. God
That's all
damn.
I'm hearing, bro.
And let me break it down to you. Not that I'm an expert in Colombian law, but we do have an office in Medellin, Colombia, and I am of Colombian descent. The last time I checked, and it was fairly recent, Colombia does consider what we don't here in Florida, but some states in the United States do, very few, but still, common law marriage. So if you're going down to Colombia, you get in that kitty, you got her set up in a nice condo that you go and you hang out, and that's your missy, that's your missus while you're down there.
Tell her, hey, wifey.
She gonna get you in Colombia. Don't go down there wifing women up and thinking because you're now married on paper, because if she can prove that y'all are a married couple, even though without the paper, Colombia does have common law marriage.
All right. Damn. Fresh, your dream has been shattered, my friend. Holy. He was talking for the luck. I'm going to go to Colombia and get a chick down there. I'll be safe from these American divorce laws.
Nope.
No, I guess not, man.
Okay.
Nope. All right.
Good to know.
I know we're running out of time, so I just want to, whenever you're ready for 4 and
let's hit the
5.
other two. Yeah.
me too.
So number 4 was, oh God, and this one comes with an example. This is the equity
Just tell the
case.
story.
No, you tell it. Using marital funds to pay down or pay off a non-marital asset. We briefly touched on that. For example, using your salary made during the marriage to pay down your non-marital property. If you have a non-marital property, rental property, make sure your tenants or non-marital money pays the expenses, such as the mortgage. We have a fascinating example, guys. Listen up right now, please. This is important because this is one of those situations where you would never think, and this is real. This was a case we tried in our office, and unfortunately we did lose on this issue because the law was against us. Dan?
So I had a client. He had a non-marital real property, and during the marriage, the parties bought.
Was it an investment property or
no? It was his home.
Okay.
And during the marriage, they bought investment properties.
Okay.
That's what they did,
That's
like
what
as
they
a
did.
couple,
Lots
as
of
a
them.
business.
All their money
You
went
see,
to
he brought her
investment
into the
properties.
business.
So what happened was, my client was like, "Hey, why are we going to go to a bank and get a mortgage when I can just take a HELOC on my non-marital real property and get a lower interest rate?" So let's just say they took out $100,000 HELOC on his non-marital property.
Yeah.
Got that loan, purchased real properties. Then they paid that loan off using marital funds. The court basically said that because they took out $100,000 and then repaid it, he owed her 50.
Wow.
So yeah, he was responsible to pay that.
So the line of credit that he had.
Let's break it down because it's so fascinating. I was like, wow.
He saved the parties probably a couple of points, because if they had to go to a bank, it would have been a higher mortgage or a higher interest rate.
Instead of getting a loan from the bank, because he was like, I don't like your interest rate, I'm just going to put a line of credit on my non-marital asset that I've owned before the marriage. I get $100,000 line. He takes that line or $100K from it, buys another house with his wife. Now
they repay the loan
and they repay that $100K back to the main house.
He owes her half that repayment.
Wow.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
It was fast. I knew you were gonna love that story because it was fascinating.
He goes unpunished. If he would have just said, "Hey, honey, let's go to the bank," and he would
get a mortgage, it would have been, 50, whatever,
fine.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And so what we argued was that, we tried to argue that the money, even the because even the taking out of the $100,000 is still non-marital. He could have done whatever with that money, still non-marital. And he could have even bought a property without putting her name on it, and it would have still been non-marital. The problem was when he went to pay back that loan, he didn't use non-marital money. He didn't use it. He didn't use rental income from another property. He didn't use inheritance. He used his same salary, his same money that he was making.
Earned income to pay that loan back on the non-marital asset, and that's what fucked him up, because now she was entitled to 50% of that money he paid back.
So she got an extra $50K in that divorce. That hurt. That one hurt. I'm not gonna lie, that one hurt.
That is crazy.
But here's the thing: I won on other issues.
Oh yes, of course. It wasn't
in
a
family
loser.
cases. It's so let's
Varying
say
degrees.
let's say you have issues of equitable distribution, alimony, and attorney's fees. You're not going to clean sweep win on all issues. He may have lost that equitable distribution issue, but he won on an alimony issue, and he goose egged her in fees. So there's a lot of moving
and he
pieces.
got 50-50 time sharing.
Let's say he took a loan out on his own name to pay that loan back versus using his earned income. Would have still probably been marital, right?
Look, the problem is that all the money paid back was marital funds.
Yeah.
So that's why she's getting her half.
If he would have had a prenup, he would have been
good.
saved. He would have been good.
Prenup.
Nope.
No.
And that's why he spent a lot of money on attorney fees and a property appraiser, especially particularly in cases where you have a lot of properties, you're going to spend money on appraisers and things like that.
But Dan, I'm married for love. Damn, that's crazy.
So that's
anybody get divorced for hate?
Wow, that's crazy.
That's wild.
Like my grandma said, love don't pay the rent.
And I can honestly see that, since that logic applied with real estate. If you take a loan out against any of your assets, maybe you take a crypto loan out against your portfolio or against your Vanguard account, whatever, and you pay it back with marital funds, she probably now has leeway into that.
There's so many parts of this are moving, bro. I have a headache. I just know that. So getting married to me is a headache at this point. Man.
Let's say he had taken the $100K, put it in his non-marital account, and then they decided they didn't want to buy the property after all, and he would have just paid it right back. I think that would have been okay.
Oh yeah, because
that would have been okay.
Yeah.
But it was the fact that they used it and then he paid.
Then he took his earned income, which was marital. Okay.
And number 5.
Number 5. This is the last one.
The easiest one, and people do it all the time. Transferring title of the property, whatever property, cars, anything, boats,
happens all the time,
homes, transferring title to your spouse. And I wrote here, believe it or not, people actually do this all the time voluntarily. And you would think, why? No, it might not be right away. It might be 5-10 years into the marriage. For whatever reason, maybe you're getting sued and you think that's the way to cover it up, or what, hide your assets, whatever
to shield it from somebody else.
Exactly.
Now, here's my question. Let's say, does duration of time matter, or does the fact that you transferred it to them at some point override everything? Let's say you transfer it to them for 3 months because you're scared of being sued, and they're like, I'm good. transfer it back to you. Is that good, or do you be protected
we
there?
talked a little bit about this earlier, and the argument you're making is the carve out. So, if your non-marital funds hit a joint account for 10 minutes and go transfer into your non-marital account, you're probably good.
Yeah.
But the longer the money sits there and the more time it has to be commingled with marital funds, the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you
The time's
transfer
not on
to,
your side.
to your girl for like a couple of months and then you take it back?
Months, that's not good.
Okay.
Yeah, because the more time that's there, the more time it's going to have to get commingled with paychecks and other marital funds, and the more time it's going to have to fuck you.
Okay.
What's a good rule of thumb, like time-wise? A month, 2 months?
Just the rule of thumb is do not
transfer.
direct your non-marital monies into any form of a joint account whatsoever.
Got it.
Yeah.
There's no reason to do it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because people will do that to try to protect themselves, but what they actually do is shoot themselves in the foot if that party ever decides to leave them.
Yeah, I mean, look, some quick advice before you get married: have your own LLC set up. Have it set up.
Have your own separate accounts.
Have a couple if you can. Have a couple already set up. I have a couple that I just pay, every year. And I'm gonna decide at some point what I use it for, what I don't use it for. You know what I mean? Just have a couple, and then of course have your separate bank account.
But pursuant to our prenup, like we also have a joint account. And every so often we throw a couple of grand in there, and then we pay marital expenses. You know, but we handle it transaction by transaction.
Okay.
Intelligently.
Fair enough.
Wow.
All right. Wow.
And as far as prenups, there was one of my favorite shows is The Real Housewives of Miami.
Okay.
I want to watch like every single episode. So right now I'm on season 3, episode 3. There's an episode where the model, Joanna, she's gorgeous, the Polak model, who by the way is on her second divorce right now.
She's a lesbian.
No way.
You didn't know? Wait.
Joanna, the blonde one, the Polak, she was on Dancing with the Stars apparently.
Wait.
With the deep blue ocean blue eyes.
Wait, the Russian one?
No. That's the current season. This is season 3. So this is many moons ago.
I'm a bit ahead of you.
No, sorry. This is many moons ago. Anyway, she was engaged to the owner of Mint nightclub, Roman. Again, I think it's French.
Yeah.
And in season 3, episode 3 or 4, whatever, they're in the bed. They're talking about their wedding. And he busts out with prenup. Mm-hmm. And I'll leave you guys with this. Divorce insurance. It's super necessary. But he busts out with prenup, and she gets really pissed.
Oh, yeah.
And let me tell you, at that point, she wasn't just a pretty face. In the show, in that same season, you find out that she owns not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 properties in LA that she rents out. That girl came to America and she made the American dream. She owned stuff. I mean, she had things she could lose too. So he wasn't marrying just a pretty face. Like she had her assets, she had her portfolio, and she gets pissed. They're in bed eating breakfast, and she gets pissed. And she's like, "Why a prenup? Like prenup means you're thinking about divorce." And he says to her, "Well, if we're never gonna get divorced, what does it matter?"
Yeah.
And Dan and I were talking about it before we came. It's the what? The egg.
It's a chicken and the egg.
Yeah.
It's a circular thing at the end.
But that protects her too. She's like, I don't know why she'd get mad.
It should protect
5 properties in LA is going to be a couple M on them. I just know that off the top of my
here's
head.
the thing: if she has them all rented and they're all paying for themselves, then she should be good.
Should be, guys. The prenuptial agreement is the way to go. This beautiful couple, because that is one thing I could say about them for sure that I know. They're both beautiful people aesthetically, at least in season 3. They got divorced 4 years later. And I'm pretty sure they had a prenup, and I'm sure that they are happier that they did have a prenup than if they didn't.
You know why I actually like that show? Because like I can see couples how they break up. It's so crazy how they break up. It's actually insane. And they're mega wealthy.
Damn.
It's crazy, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I've never seen it, so I can't speak to it. But
it's a pretty good show.
All right, I'll hit these last ones, then we'll close out the show.
I love it.
AJ, so what about getting rental property during the marriage? All acquired on my own funds. How do I keep that separate in divorce? Should I keep it under an LLC and have a trust that own that LLC?
He says all acquired by my own funds. But the problem is if those funds were acquired during the marriage, my own funds are half hers.
Yeah.
So
unless you have a prenup.
Right. Okay. Naruto Explained goes, would placing rental properties in your business name be enough to protect those assets during a divorce, or do you still need a prenup?
Again, if it's earned with marital funds, and I don't care how they're titled or what they're titled, then you have exposure.
I'm coming after them.
Even if your mom put under her name, guys.
Still.
Dania, are current laws arbitrary and hard to change? Can it be challenged with the purpose of rational standing?
I'm not familiar with rational standing. I'm familiar with standing, which is whether a person or entity has a right to bring forth an action. as far as changing laws, guys, it's the one thing a lot of us don't do. And I'm not going to say us because I try my best to do, but even sometimes I've been guilty. And that's, we don't vote.
Yeah.
Right? We were not there when a lot of people, your color, my color, couldn't vote. So it's very different. But a lot of young people don't vote. And how you make sure these laws are, I guess, better or, you know, more in tune with reality or our society or whatnot is not just voting, but also getting involved in politics, guys, running for office so that you can set forth those bills that are put in the House, in your state's legislature and the Senate and all that. And that's the best way. You know, a lot of, I talk to clients all the time. They get really pissed off when I tell them the law. I said, you don't like it, go up to Tallahassee, change the law, you know, either lobby, run for office, or vote out the people that are putting forth bills that you don't agree with.
All right, fair enough. All right, so I'm gonna fly through these guys because they got to get going. They're real adults with some responsibilities. Call me G. Scott goes. Honorable Myron Muhammad teaches that women need to offer value to a man's life/mission. How does that work? Considering what we just learned about a woman helping you appreciate. We spoke about that earlier as far as like employing her, having prenuptial agreements in place, all these things. Xmar, can a stay-at-home mom of 10 years common law relationship be able to get alimony plus 50% of assets plus child support? Only available evidence is religious marriage ceremony and family pictures. Also, common law husband is not on birth certificate. We just answered
not
that.
in Florida.
Not Florida.
We just we just answered that even religious ceremonies can be
but he knew
construed as-
child support, but not alimony, not equitable.
And you said it was a Jewish ceremony that allowed them to basically.
There was
But that was a New York law.
New York law
York.
that's saying that religious ceremony was enough.
Okay. So again, guys, depends on your state. What do the guys think about the growing trend of just getting married in church but not signing the state paperwork? It appears to be a future for the way men should go. Also, why aren't family courts jury trial? It makes sense.
Could you imagine a jury trial trying to a jury trying to formulate a timeshare schedule?
Yeah, well, it's not practical.
No. We're not deciding someone's guilt or innocence.
Yeah. So if your girl pressing you for marriage, hit up my boy Fresh. We got them water dissolving certificates on deck. That's the Fresh's dogs. All right.
Oh my God.
Jake Marker goes, can we get a Donna Marker for all the precious little children, the true victims of divorce, separated families? Hey, man, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
You stay together, guys, if you can. What do we got here? Frank Sonara, the Foxtrot Sierra podcast, straight out to you. My favorite lawyers are back. Let's go. I'll have to catch this episode on my way back to work tomorrow. Shout out to you guys, FNF, and the back, Chris and Mo, making the magic happen. Keep leading from by example, gentlemen. Appreciate that, bro.
Yeah, Frank.
Thanks,
Go
bro.
sub to his channel. Jay Wynn goes, hey, I'm in South Carolina. I have a friend girl. I think he means girlfriend, that has an issue with her ex-husband. He's active in the military. It took her to court, and the court ruled her to move in a 50-mile radius to wherever he's stationed at. Any advice for her?
Oh, now it's South Carolina.
Yeah, but that sounds. No, I don't like that one bit. That sounds like a very challenging. I mean, everyone has no court can tell someone where to live.
Okay.
You know,
Shit.
I mean, look, in Florida, we have petitions for relocation, but I've never heard of anything.
Yeah, it sounds
like
unorthodox.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he goes to Timbuktu and you got to, or Japan and you got to, pack up shop. It may not be in the child's best interest.
I was just going to say, I don't even think
there's a problem there.
Yeah,
Okay.
she may not have had an attorney. It is South Carolina law, but in Florida, you probably rarely, if you wouldn't see that. Not
Yeah,
like
especially
that.
I mean, anytime the guy gets moved to Hawaii or whatever, I mean, that's all.
It might
sorts
be
of
just
problems.
because he has a military base there in South Carolina, and they're trying to stipulate that, but that it does sound weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to know a little more.
Okay. Zentians, I'm not an attorney, but the law states in Texas that if a man finds out he's not the biological father, he has 3 months, I think, to contest the legal precedent of being the father by allowing a disestablishment of paternity. Don't procrastinate.
I was about to say, just if you have a hunch,
Yeah.
take the test
Take
as
the
soon
paternity
as
test.
possible. Yeah, get it out of the way.
Yeah, as soon as
Right.
that kid is born.
Right.
Uh,
Don't wait 5 years.
Okay. Memo. Yeah, because basically, the more you're in that kid's life, the more they can articulate that it's better for the kid for you to be there, even if you're not the biological
Taking
father.
holiday pictures and
Yeah,
shit,
yeah.
and here's my baby,
And then
you know,
she could say, he is my dad.
Yep.
Because mentally,
There you
you
go.
are.
Right.
And I really like the fact that when in doubt, always know that they're going to go in the best interest of the kid, which a lot of times, guys, is not going to benefit you.
Right.
Because if it's the benefit of the kid, it means you're responsible. Okay. Bought a home with my fiance at 23. Oh, man. Created a notarized agreement regarding ownership to protect us, too, just as a precaution. Sure enough, 2 years later, she cheated and tried to claim 50% when in fact it was 30%. Saved me from being finessed.
I mean, that's a prenup. What he did. I mean, he bought a home prior to the marriage with his fiance, and they created an agreement about what delineated, their ownership shares.
Yeah.
By the way, for everybody that's not married, but they're buying properties for whatever reason, this is a new generation of influencers and podcasters that are making millions and millions of dollars. So buying property for some people is a lot easier these days and also more difficult, but for some folks easier. And you buy it with your girlfriend.
Hell no.
Please note that whether she put money down or not or whatever, and vice versa, he or she, it doesn't matter. Once I'm on Title B, I own 50% of it.
Joint tenants, right? At survivorship.
I mean, at least in Florida. I don't know about other states, okay? I own 50% of it. And unless one of two ways to get me out, you're going to buy me out, pay me up front, my 50%, or we're going to sell it and I get half the sales proceeds.
Damn.
So I have a lot of people, young people coming in saying, we bought this property, we bought this, we bought that. Great. But if you didn't have a notarized agreement or whatever stipulating who got what or who was going to put in what or creating a partnership agreement or whatever, those are some of the loopholes where then they're like, I want to, and then we're doing one right now, a partition action where same thing, boyfriend and girlfriend bought a house together, both on title, and now there's issues, domestic violence issues, breaking up,
Well,
whatever.
let's say they have a kid, and then there's a paternity case. The paternity judge doesn't have jurisdiction to sell that home. So you have a paternity case, and you need to file a separate civil partition case to deal with the real property.
So for the guys that have girlfriends, this is something you need to keep in mind.
Yeah, paternity judges don't deal with real property or any paternity cases are only parenting plan and child support and attorney fees.
So what if I have no kids, but I have my own property? My girlfriend comes over every now and then, spends the night. Does that count for that same type of
No, we're talking about ownership. Like they're on the deed. They bought the property together, or maybe not together, but he wanted to flex and was like, I'll put you on the deed, baby.
But don't get me wrong. She stays there 3-4 nights. She doesn't want to go. You might have to evict her.
Damn.
Yeah. Well, it's not an eviction because
an unlawful detainer,
an unlawful detainer because she's not a tenant, so it's not an eviction. But yeah, I shared this with you guys last time. Don't let her get mailed to your house. That's number one way it's gonna look like she lives there. And I think in Florida, it's like more than 14 consecutive days, kind of like tenancy and all the leases. That's why you're not allowed to have anybody here for at least 14 or 15 consecutive days, give or take. She can start establishing that she lives there. I'll tell you what, I have a case right now. We have a case right now where they were boyfriend and girlfriend, but long term, 8 years. He has raised her children.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Stupid.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Something happened between them. I don't know what. Okay. There was an allegation of domestic violence. He owns the home. It's a non-marital asset. They're not married. Pay attention. They're not married. Okay. He owns the home. They've been living there for 8 years. He's been raising her kids, whatever. There was an allegation of domestic violence against him on her. Stay away order put in place. He cannot go or he cannot be at his own house.
Wow.
She
ain't going nowhere.
She ain't going nowhere because she lives there for free. He's not going to stop paying the mortgage because he's not going to lose his house. So she has a free house right now where he pays all the bills and she could do what she wants, bring whoever she wants over, do whatever she wants with her kids at this house.
There's
he's not even allowed to drive by because that's a violation of the stay order.
There's case law that says a court can award a spouse temporary exclusive use and possession of another spouse's non-marital property. So yeah, just because you believe that you own a premarital, she still could be in there during the pendency of the case if she has nowhere else to go and you can afford another place.
Wow.
Hey, bro. That is, man.
Ouch.
That's scary, bro.
You got your girl telling you, I'm not fucking leaving.
Legally too.
She's just like, the show goes on. I'm staying here and doing everything I want.
And even for married guys, we've talked about this. This is how a lot of women and men get the other spouse out of the house. They'll call the cops. They'll allege domestic violence. They'll get the other person arrested. The stay away order says you need to stay 500 feet away from the house. You can't go back to your house.
Damn. All right.
She needs her own place,
Don't get yeeted out your own house, guys.
Yeah.
Like the video, by the way, man. This is some life-saving advice here. The X factor: if you get married in the church or mosque without getting to stay involved in the United States or the West, can you still be subject to equitable distribution of assets if you and your partner split? Good question.
We answered that earlier.
Yeah, that's the ceremony question.
It's state dependent, but
Have you ever guys dealt with like an Islamic marriage? Yeah, I know you guys did one.
The example I had, they were Jewish and they had the Jewish ceremony in New York and not the marriage license.
Okay.
So again,
so it could, depending on the state, they could look at it that way, man. So I'm learning even today. I've known of cases where people had to give up half of their money due to common law marriage. So what type of document do you need to protect yourself if you plan to spend the rest of your life with someone without marriage? I think we just talked about that document. What was it
No
called again?
document. Just
I
live
mean,
in a
yeah.
state that does not does not
Move to
does not
Florida.
recognize
Yeah.
common law marriage. Florida does not.
Okay. And then
Most states don't.
What was that other agreement that you guys had mentioned where if you're not married to the girl but you buy assets together, whatever, and you want to go ahead and protect her, maybe you want.
I mean, it's just a standard. I mean, it's a contract.
Oh, what he said, he had like a notarized agreement.
There you
So
go.
we're
Okay.
depending on the terms, it could be a partnership agreement. It could be, I don't know, just some sort of. I mean, listen, it doesn't have to be all that fancy. It could be just between y'all. Look,
Yeah.
I agree. Da.
Yeah.
I would use an attorney, but if
Yeah.
that's what, look, if you have enough money to buy a property, you have enough money to pay
Get a
an
goddamn
attorney.
lawyer, yeah.
Okay, you're
Facts.
talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line here. Spend a couple of grand on an attorney and protect yourself and protect your asset and make sure that in the event you all are not cool in the next couple of years, months, weeks, days, whatever, that your asset is protected and that you know exactly how it's going to be divided.
Cool.
Wow.
Chris, how many more?
Wait, go back to that one. That
Which
was a
one?
good one. Dr. Wall Street. That was a good one. Yeah.
To best protect your assets in a divorce, just use irrevocable trust. And guys, from this point forward, we're gonna not read any more chats because we gotta end the show here soon, and obviously we gotta respect their time. To best protect your asset in a divorce, just use an irrevocable trust. Not only will it not be affected by divorce since you technically don't own the assets, the IRS also can't tax it. You also don't alert your spouse as with a prenup and more.
I can't touch on the tax issue there, but what I can tell you is that a trust can be joined to a dissolution of marriage case. If you have a bunch of marital assets and you put it in a trust thinking, oh, we're good because it's in a trust. No, that trust is a legal entity. It's just like joining a corporation or some other third party, but a trust can be joined to the litigation.
So,
Wow.
So he's wrong here. You should disclose it.
Well, the thing is, just putting marital funds in some sort of irrevocable trust is not going to shield them from equitable distribution.
Okay,
But
because he's saying you don't have to disclose it in the divorce, in the prenup.
Well, hold on, Dan.
Yes, you.
Is there going to be a difference? So I haven't dealt with an irrevocable trust. An irrevocable trust means the beneficiary truly loses complete and utter control. You no longer have any say whatsoever in the management, manipulation, transfer, assigning, nothing of that property.
But if
I think the court, I don't know, right? I don't know. You might be right, but I think the court might look at an irrevocable trust slightly different than a regular schmegular revocable trust.
regardless if it's marital funds that were earned during the marriage and put into this trust in order to shield them from your wife, I don't think that's going to protect it. I think that you can join the trust and that you can.
He might be right.
It's a court of equity. These are
equity.
marital funds earned during the marriage, put into a trust to shield them from the wife.
So,
if that's the case, you lose that.
So to be safe, probably
Prenup.
better to disclose it in that financial affidavit.
Get a prenup and disclose the trust in the prenup.
Yeah,
and then you're protected.
And then you're protected
Yeah.
versus like kind of risking like it's irrevocable. I'm
Right,
safe.
yeah,
and then she can make the argument. Well, you use marital funds to put it to that trust,
Right.
so I am entitled to it.
It's a dissipation argument because every dollar that you put in the trust, you owe me 50 cents because it was a marital asset.
Damn.
Okay. So, guys, it's better to be transparent.
But good
man.
question.
Yeah, that's a really good
Good question, and I actually want to go research some of that. So
Here he goes again. Set up
like
an OATP along with a law firm. As your assets are managed by a legal firm, they are not technically owned by you under U.S. law unless your spouse can prove it.
Right.
And that would be impossible unless you tell them or they find the physical paperwork.
I mean, he's a clever guy. I give him that. You know.
Yeah. But he's
Dr.
doing all
Wall
this work
Street.
to try to conceal it.
Yeah.
But all she got to do is find that you use marital funds and put it to that trust, and
Yes, prenup then.
that could fuck you up. So is it really worth it? Like hiding it to be like, look, I did all this. I got an irrevocable trust, and just for her to find out something that you had some marital funds and you put it in there.
and then think about it on the stand.
Could
Mr. Gaines,
a good
do you
lawyer
have an irrevocable
find out?
trust?
Yes.
Yes. And
Had to
did
fund
you
it.
purposely did you purposely set that up so that you could, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's gonna come
Where'd
out.
the money come from?
Yeah.
I
where'd
earned
the
it during
money-
the marriage.
Yeah.
Could a good
Yeah.
attorney find that? Still?
Great question. So I always say the answer is no. There is no like database of
Yeah.
trust. That
Yeah.
is the beautiful thing about trust.
Right.
But all it takes is me setting you down for deposition under oath. Could you lie? Of course. But if you have we're gonna ask in a deposition. Do you own a trust? Are you a trustee of a trust? Are you the beneficiary of a trust? Have you ever created a trust? I mean, if you're gonna ask these things in depo, could you lie? Of course. Yeah. I mean, you could get away with it.
Yeah, some of these divorces get nasty. They hire private investigators and they find that shit out, guys.
Yeah.
And it could really mess you up.
The problem is that 50 years ago there was a lot more people getting paid in greenbacks, where you could take money and put it under your mattress and you'll never find it.
Yeah.
But now even people who are like, I go get my hair cut, like no one wants money. It's Venmo or Zelle, and there's records of everything.
Apple Pay.
So we get all the records, and we do a lot of tracing, and we trace them.
I will say without a doubt, though, when we have a case that the person is a cash business, like a barber, cleaning people, things like that, I'm not gonna lie, I don't want to share this too loud, but it is harder to track because it's really hard to track cash. And I could set you down for depot and I could tell you a million times, but you're a GC, but you're a handyman, right? Isn't it true that and you could say, yeah, but I don't get cash. And like, that's, I gotta really, it's going to be hard for me to prove your cash. So cash is still king.
City boys be up. Use cash.
Okay. Where we at here, Chris? Okay. Last one. J. Martin, Will Martin. It's looking like there's only a certain lady / assistant you're going to want to consider compensating with thank yous rather than the W-2s. This has been the most informative and depressing episode I've seen in a while. Epiphanies and sadness. Hey, man, it is what it is, bro. Better for you guys to know now than find out later on, right?
For sure.
Is that it?
Yep.
All right, cool. So, guys, where can people find you? And this is a great episode. Like the video, guys.
Fire.
Thank you so much again for having us. We look forward to coming back not so long in distance.
Yes.
You can find me at Pratt Law. That's PRATTLAW. That's on Instagram, TikTok, at Pratt Law. I'm a little disappointed. I haven't seen anybody. Usually I come on and I get a lot of people. Maybe it's not coming up. I don't know. So at Pratt Law. Our law firm is at Prada.law.
We'll put them in the description right now. Mo's on it.
Our number is toll free. You can call from anywhere in the world, 888-AA-LEGAL, which technically is 888-883-3425, I believe. But 888-LEGAL. And yes, some people don't know what the legal means. LEGAL. It's like I know, because, we don't have the rotary. I get it. As for Mr. Silver, and you can also check us out, www.prada.law. Of course.
I'm D Silver at Prada.law. And also, last time I was here.
D Silver at Prada.law. That's your email.
That's my email.
Dan,
right.
Last time you gave away your number.
I did. It was fun. So I'll do it again. It's 305-793-5790.
Bam.
305-793-5790. Don't call me too late.
All right.
We're parents now, guys.
Guys, this was a crazy show. I mean, I'm telling you right now, ultimately, I ain't getting married.
Yeah.
Just saying right now.
Lord.
This is very informative.
But if you do, we'll drop the prenup for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
no, thank you.
Guys, if you do want to go down that road, y'all just learned a bunch now. At least now you got your eyes wide open and you know who to contact to create that ironclad prenup. This episode was really informative, guys. Thank you so much.
I got to get one of these boxes for my Zoom court hearings. That way, when I drop some knowledge on the judge, I'm like, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, there you go. You just hit the judge with the I rest my case, Your Honor.
All right.
Guys, hope you guys like the video. We'll catch you guys on the next episode of Freshandfit. We'll be back here with some lovely ladies in about an hour. Peace.
Peace.